I think that we should also discuss the content of material in the libraries. And I know, you and I have had conversations, multiple, about the content of the books and the school libraries, what kind of ramifications that has.
I mean, I've got to say, I've read some of those books, and some of the content in those books is absolutely horrible. We had a school,
Even as an adult,
even
right?
as an adult. I mean, one of the things it talks about is bestiality, and I'm going to get a little graphic here, so sorry for your listeners. Sex with a cow. I mean, we live in Weld County. I believe JBS Swift is one of the largest processing plants for cattle in the nation. And for District 6 to allow for a book that talks about bestiality in the classroom.
Just for the record, I'm pretty sure if a JBS Swift employee was caught engaging in bestiality with one of those cows, they would probably be fired.
I'd hope they'd be fired. And District 6 to accept a book like that into their classroom.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things, when we were challenging some of the content of the books in the library and just saying, like, the biggest thing that we think is that the parents should be notified prior to say, hey, your student has shown interest in checking out this book. We want to talk with you. We want you to be prepared, right? Like what we talked about a little while ago. If a student in your classroom is having a problem, you're going to include the parents so you guys can work together. So why wouldn't the schools include the parents to talk with them about, there is some heavy content. There's stuff that, adults
talks
don't
about
understand.
Rape, bestiality, things like that. Those are not, it's not like when schools were showing Schindler's List. Schindler's List was an historical movie based off of real life events.
And your parents had to sign before.
Yes, your parents had to sign before. These are not historical events. And if a kid needs to connect to that book because they went through that, again, they need to go to a psychologist. They don't need to be reading it in a class, in a library, or in a classroom library. It's absolutely... And they want to give some of these books to my fifth graders? No way will that ever happen in my classroom. Yeah. It will never happen. And some of this stuff that District 6 has pulled, not pulling some of these books, Deidre needs to be ashamed of herself. She needs to absolutely stop thinking because she gets a big paycheck from District 6, and she needs to challenge some of this stuff. And quite frankly, the porno pastor... Michael Matthews needs to actually be a pastor and stand up for the truth and be...
Oh, but these books have literary value, don't you know? Well, they're not actually considered obscene according to their definitions.
Then the parent can go buy it at Barnes and Noble,
Amazon.
Yep. They can go to wherever they want. They do not need to be in the classroom.
That would require the parent to be involved, and if their whole agenda is to get the parent out of the classroom, then that's fine. I think it's interesting too when we talk about some of the book content and such. There's really no oversight to it. A teacher can actually just reach out to the American Library Association and say, I want this book in my school district, in my library. And then the next time that library gets a shipment of books, because they just, it's, a crapshoot. Here you go. These are the books that you're going to get this year, this month, whatever their frequency is. And then there they are. So once they came in and the parents started to realize what was going on, then the school districts all panicked. Again, they're more focused on keeping the content in instead of finding a cohesive system for it. Like I said, notifying the parents beforehand. If you think that your student is capable of reading this book and you want them to be able to check it out from the library and they're, it's age appropriate, they're high schoolers, whatever, then they can do that. But it's something that the parents are aware of, they're on board with, they're prepared to have hard conversations with their students. I'm a bookworm myself. It's one of my favorite things to do is read. And so I read one of the books and I read it in a day because the writing was geared for 2nd through 5th grade. But the content was geared for 9th through 12th grade. So is it that our 9th through 12th graders are only reading at a 2nd through 5th grade level? Or are we trying to introduce 9th through 12th grade concepts to 2nd through 5th graders? I should not have been able to read this book in a day.
Well, let's be honest. For most of our kids, if you look at statistics, our even 9th through 12th graders are reading at between a 2nd and a 5th grade level.
Yeah.
I think
it's basically a combination of both.
It's a combination of both.
Our older kids can't read, and they want to introduce these disgusting conversations with younger kids. Something I touched on a couple of weeks ago was our superintendent in District 6 handpicked people that she knew would not ever stand up to her. So these are all her yes men.
Yeah, so you're letting one person decide who's going to be on this committee. A library resource may not be removed by request for reconsideration is pending. A principal, librarian, media specialist, an other employee, contractor, or volunteer may refuse a directive to remove a library resource if such an individual has a good faith belief. Well, how about removing it while it's being looked into?
Yeah.
So we're not going to cause controversy, and then say, you know what, we've removed it. We're going to hold it off until then. That's what we would do almost in every other case.
Yep.
You're essentially saying that we can't remove something that could be potentially dangerous, not only psychologically to our kids, but sexually to our kids and things like that, because they're going to get ideas from this book. Again, it's not like Schindler's List.
Correct.
I mean, some of these books are not like Schindler's List, and to equate it with Schindler's List, the movie or things like that is absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
So what about if a school board gets to appoint these people and you interview people to be on these boards instead of just saying, okay, just willy-nilly.
Or even if each school board member, so say, for instance, ours is a 7-member board. Yep. If each of them brought one person
and recommended
to the table
exactly
to be on the board, yes, there's probably still going to be evenness or of views, right? Because that's typically how our school board votes, is a 5-2 split. So it's going to probably be like that, but it would still give somebody a voice, because it sounds like these books are being approved across the board by everybody, that nobody sees a problem.
And I have no problem with the librarian being on the board or the media specialist, because that's kind of what they're in charge of, okay? But then allowing other people to have that responsibility as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's funny. They talked about one of the books that we challenged. They weren't going to review it because it had been removed from the library due to inactivity. Okay. But then one of the other books that was reviewed and it went to appeals, and they had the big show at the school board meetings. One of the board members, Brenda Campos Spitz, said that she's like, I don't know what the big deal is. Anyways, it's not like anybody's even checking this book out. It hasn't been checked out since 2016. So then why are we keeping it?
Well,
so we went through that whole process, and we kept that book because that's what made people feel warm and fuzzy inside. But then we took out another book because it wasn't being utilized. This doesn't make any sense.
I'm going to tell you that we had a school board member who actually went to the shelf, found a book that they found reprehensible, and pulled it off of their shelf, pulled it off of our library shelf. I praise God for that, because that's the right thing to do. Yes. I mean, and it's not that we're saying that these books can't be in a parent's home. So it's not like it's not still accessible. If the parent wants them to have it, they can still have it accessible. If you can't read a book at a school board meeting, you can't read a book. Then your 12th grader can't read it. Your 11th grader shouldn't be able to read it. I'm sorry, Pastor Matthews, Pastor Porno. You cannot read. If you can't have that read at your school board meeting, you can't have it read in all your libraries. Don't put it in your library.
Yeah.
Deidre, if you can't have that read in the school board meeting, don't you ever have it in your library. You are a reprehensible person for doing that, if that's the case.
I think one of the other things that's also concerning is, and truthfully, with challenging the books, the content of the books in the Greeley-Evans District 6 district doesn't even actually start to approach this problem, but it's the High Plains Public Libraries. I know that the bookmobile goes out to your area,
Yep.
and it goes out to multiple areas throughout the county. And they are bringing these books there, and then it's opening the door for children to have access to them.
Yeah, I think it was last year I caught one of my students. They had a book that was promoted by GLAAD, so GLAAD, and GLAAD is the pretty much gays and lesbians, and so here, so again, it's gays and it's promoting a certain lifestyle to these kids. I mean, it's something that we need to definitely worry about. So we think some of this stuff that, oh, well, it's just happening in District 6. Well, it's going to trickle out there. I had a school board member who says, well, I don't want to force my religion on people. Well, these laws that they're passing, some of this stuff is coming out to our district, and it's coming out here real soon. And we think, oh, well, it's just, we're a small rural school district, and we can fight this. We have conservatives on the school board. Yes and no, because we as conservatives sometimes are the ones that go, well,
we don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah, we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to say anything. Well, it's time to speak up.
Yeah.
It's time to say enough is enough. I mean, we have kids that actually live in District 6, but their parents work out for us, so they come out to our school. So there's some that move out there because they're tired of this stuff. We've had parents that moved out there because they were getting tired of it.
Well, and they even took their special needs child out of a district that has more resources, more capabilities to handle that child than the district that they ended up putting that child into, specifically because they were sick and tired of the stuff that the Greeley-Evans District 6 was pushing. Yeah. As a teacher, I know that you're not a parent, but as a teacher, can you fault the parents for that?
No, I cannot fault the parent, especially if you're going to have your child have books that pretty much have pornography in it.
Yeah.
I cannot fault it.
I think that one of the other things that's probably a little concerning too, going back to the movement of the students from bigger school districts to smaller school districts, more rural. I've heard stories of parents who would commute one way 45 minutes just to take their kid to a different school and then back. What is that doing in terms of class size and staffing for smaller districts? Is this a major issue for you guys?
So I got to say that we have 20 kids, just my class.
Yeah. Is there only one fifth grade class at your
There's
school?
only one fifth grade class at my school. So, I mean, we are packed in there. Yeah. I mean, we were tight. It's a tight classroom. I mean, I have virtually no other place to put more desk or hardly anything like that. I'm virtually packed in there, and I've done this since August by the grace of God. Now next year I only have 7, but then there's some other classes that have, I think, 14, 15 kids. So
this is a little bit of a bigger.
Yeah. So you're seeing people want to move out there, want to move to these rural school districts, or even go to a school district. I think I have one kid that lives in Fort Collins. I have 2 or 3 that come from Greeley or a bigger school district. So it causes space problems for us smaller school districts when these kids come out from other districts or transfer from other districts.
Does your guys' district have a mill levy override?
We do.
I think that's kind of the downside too, though, is that if these kids are coming from other places, they may be paying a mill levy override. Say they're coming from Greeley-Evans District 6. That's where they live, but their parents are commuting them out there. They are paying a mill levy override to District 6, but that funds aren't going to the other schools where it's needed. And that's really concerning.
You're going to need more and more paras, which you're losing paras daily as well. So you're losing teachers as well, with the number of teachers that are exiting the profession, and we're not getting them replaced as quickly as we need to.
Yeah.
So it's again, it's partly the legislation. They keep throwing more and more at us. We're expected to be a psychologist as a teacher. We're expected to be a medical professional. Neither one of those I went to college to be.
I do have a question for you. If a student of yours came to you and said, Mr. Hale, I believe that I am transgender. What would your response be?
My response would be, well, who did God make you to be? I mean, and not only that, I have an obligation, a moral obligation to tell the parents, regardless of what the state laws say. I mean, I'll break the laws. I don't care. My God is first and foremost going to dictate how I respond to that kid. I would probably look at that kid and say, God made you into this from birth. I understand your confusion. I understand what you're feeling. Probably ask them why they're feeling that way, why they're thinking that way. Is it something that happened during the course of them growing up? Is it being teased by other kids? Because a lot of times it's other kids teasing them. I mean, telling them that they look like a boy, or a girl looks like a boy, or a boy looks like a girl, or, oh, you like baking, or you like something feminine, you like sewing. Okay, so be it. Mm-hmm. Okay, that doesn't make that person into a different gender. And so I would probably have to come at it looking like that. Why is this child wanting to be something that they're not?
I think that's a really great response, because I think a lot of times, like you said, that there's something else leading to this, to make them to feel this way, to lead to this. I talked about a couple of weeks ago, a girl in District 6 who was sexually assaulted by her father. And for the last 6 years, she's been taking testosterone because she doesn't feel comfortable being a girl because of what her father did to her. So she sees this as the way to protect herself from ever being a victim again. We're not dealing with that underlying. We're not dealing with the underlying issues. We're not addressing those. We're putting a horrible Band-Aid on it.
And you've got to address the underlying issues first. And I'm going to be honest, I'd probably ask that child if I can pray with them. I mean, because I believe that they need to connect with God, and they need to find who God made them to be.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to be what the world wants them to be. They need to know that God loves them right where they're at. They need to know that God loves them for who they are.
I just have to say, thank you so much, Corey, for being so strong in your faith in that aspect, because you don't know how many Christian teachers I come across that are willing to push their Christianity away for fear of being offensive. It's awful, and we need more Christian teachers to be able to stand and say, no, this is where I'm at, and I will not compromise my values, my morals, just to make somebody else feel better about their sin. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? That's why they're doing that is. We're not saying call them sinners and throw tar and feathers on them, but we're saying that when you love them in truth. You tell them the truth.
Yep, and you tell them the truth, and you've got to come from a place of love. And we're living in a time where the lines are being drawn.
Yep.
I mean, 100%. Am I going to live for Christ and not care to lose my license? I don't care if I may lose my teaching license. I may lose my job, but my Christ, my faith, my God said he would provide for all of my needs, regardless of whether I have my job tomorrow, regardless of whether I have my teaching license. If I have to lose my teaching license because of some of these laws, then I will lose my teaching license for some of these laws. I'm not going to look at a kid and tell them that they are a different sex that they're not.
Well, thank you so much, Corey, for joining us today. I think this was a really good conversation. And thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys will join us next week.